Nessa última sessão super especial, temos um convidado mais que especial. E para conversar com esse convidado mais que especial, eu convido ao palco o não menos especial conselheiro e fundador do IDIS, Dr. Marcos Kissel.
A possibilidade de estar nessa sessão, porque duas coincidências que esclarecem um pouco a importância de ter o Michael conosco. Quando, pelos idos de 97 e 98, eu comecei a pensar no IDIS, uma das minhas preocupações era realmente como é que se poderia trazer para o Brasil uma visão que, na minha experiência fora, era muito forte, que havia instrumentos de gestão que eram normalmente utilizados pelas empresas e que nós não utilizávamos isso para as organizações sociais. Então, a ideia de você fazer uma filantropia, em que você tentasse entender qual era a causa básica, entender o que era o problema, entender que você poderia estudar alternativas de solução, fazer um plano estratégico, um plano de gestão, ter indicadores de processo, produto, impacto, eram questões que dentro da empresa já existia um espaço. E nesse processo foi que foi criado o IDIS, lá pelos idos de 99. E eu tive o prazer de ter o livro do Michael Green e do Bishop, dos dois escreveram o livro chamado Capitalismo, que, no fundo, era um livro que, de alguma maneira, punha, de uma maneira muito clara, evidente, que os grandes doadores que começaram a surgir com a onda da tecnologia, eles estavam ocupando os espaços exatamente naquilo que eles sabiam fazer, que era usar os instrumentos, que fizeram sucesso no negócio. Isso foi extremamente importante, porque você tem agora uma evidência teórica, em que o Michael foi um dos grandes produtores dessa evidência teórica, de que aquilo que a gente estava propondo funcionava. Mas aí veio uma segunda questão envolvendo isso. Quando a gente começa a descobrir que, se a gente aplicasse essas técnicas, havia uma limitação, porque ela funcionava bem para aquilo que o Snowden punha como os problemas simples, os problemas complicados, mas não funcionava também nos problemas complexos, né? E a gente começou, então, a fazer a interface com essa questão enorme que a gente enfrenta hoje, que são as questões do próprio processo de desenvolvimento. E nós sabemos que o desenvolvimento ele é, por sua natureza, um problema complexo. Por outro lado, a gente vê que as nossas nações, e o Brasil, lamentavelmente, é um dos que mais incorporaram a ideia de que medir desenvolvimento era uma medida econômica, que você fazia através do PIB. Então, existe uma preocupação para a gente elevar o PIB, imaginando que, elevando a riqueza, ela seria distribuída e atenderia as questões socioambientais, etc. E, nesse ponto, começa a haver uma certa dificuldade. Nós que vivemos aí os gols do milênio, sabemos que foi relativamente pobre o impacto que os gols do milênio produziram. Hoje nós estamos com os gols do desenvolvimento sustentável. Se a gente seguir um pouco a mesura, medir a coisa através dos indicadores econômicos, nós vamos ter também surpresas desagradáveis com a nossa incapacidade de entender o desenvolvimento. Aí o Michael, que eu tive o privilégio de conviver uma semana com o Michael, numa cidade fantástica, que foi Beládio. A Fundação Rockefeller nos deu o privilégio de, durante uma semana, conversarmos sobre essas coisas. A gente percebeu que tinha que haver alguma outra coisa. E, felizmente, houve esse avanço, que me parece que o Michael conseguiu estruturar uma preocupação muito grande de a gente poder ter um tipo de indicador que rompia um pouco essa visão e que a gente coloca sob o nome aqui nosso, o Índice de Progresso Social. E eu fico muito feliz porque esse é o tema da nossa palestra. Somos pessoas que estamos acompanhando uns aos outros aí há alguns anos, e a gente tem hoje a felicidade de tê-lo aqui para a gente conversar sobre esse assunto. Michael é um economista por formação, Universidade de Oxford, trabalhou pelo governo britânico, fez assistência internacional, participou de várias missões, pegou a questão da Rússia e da Ucrânia depois da Glasnost, da abertura do sistema. É um homem que está acompanhando muito de perto todo esse processo. Então, para nós é um privilégio, Michael, que você esteja conosco e tenha a chance para a gente conviver aí com as tuas experiências. Muito obrigado e a palavra é sua.
Thank you, Marcos. The pleasure is all mine, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great pleasure to be back in Sao Paulo and spending time with you. And I'll explain why Sao Paulo and Brazil are a very special place for our work a little bit later. I don't know how you're feeling at the moment, maybe a little tired, but I can certainly say that I am feeling one thing very clearly today, having sat through all these discussions about technology. I'm feeling very old. And when we started the day with that fantastic piece of art, and each of those images flashed up, and it's a stone arrowhead, it's a steam engine, it's a mobile phone, it's Twitter. And then we got to the bottom row, and I was like, I don't know what those are. But that's a good thing. Today has been a fantastic inspiration, a fantastic kick up the backside to me to engage and think more about technology. So thank you, the whole IDIS team, thank you, Paula, for the fantastic kick up the bum and learning experience throughout this whole day. Now, given that, you may not be surprised to hear I'm not going to speak about technology. I want to talk about people and talk about how we can build a global system that is focused on the real needs of real people. Because we have a system that's broken. We have a system that we look back 10 years ago, our financial system fell off the cliff. Why? Because we were pursuing objectives that meant nothing, that ultimately proved themselves to be empty and hollow. And even as the global economy has recovered since that crisis, even as we've seen GDP recovering, employment recovering, we see that people are not happy. We saw the way, look at the Arab Spring. There was Tunisia, the World Bank, the World Economic Forum praising Tunisia as one of the world's economic superstars. But clearly it was a society that had huge troubles inside, and it erupted in the Arab Spring of 2011. Across the world, we're seeing this uprising of populism and unrest because people are not happy with what they're getting from the system that we have. And we need to find a way of reshaping our system. And one of the fundamental things we have to do is move on from a paradigm that we've been fixated on for the last 50 years, which is all about the relentless pursuit of economic growth, as if it's a perfect synonym for progress and development. Now, if I'd said that 10 years ago, that might have sounded a radical proposition. But increasingly, this is the consensus in the world. We need to think about progress differently, measure the progress of our societies differently. Don't listen to me. Listen to, if we get this to work, is this pinger working? If I can make this work. Is there a knack? Is there a secret?
Lower button.
The lower button.
Working? Pointing verbally?
This way, this way. Oh, there we go. That's right. Don't take my word for it. Take the word of Professor Michael Porter of Harvard Business School, the world's most cited economist, a man who has helped countries and cities around the world become more economically competitive, a red-blooded capitalist, a registered Republican, he even admits. Yeah? And he says very clearly here, economic growth alone is not sufficient to advance societies and improve the quality of life of citizens. True success and growth that is inclusive requires achieving both economic and social progress. We need to shift the paradigm of progress to think about a model of progress that's about people directly. And that's the basis of the work we did to develop what is the Social Progress Index. Now, the Social Progress Index has one really critical feature about it that you have to remember, in that it's based on solely social and environmental indicators. No economic indicators in the Social Progress Index. So some of you will know the UN Human Development Index, the OECD Better Life Index, Bhutanese Gross National Happiness. What many of these measures have done is mix up economic and social into one measure. What we've done with the Social Progress Index is said, no, let's measure social progress directly, independently of economic variables, and that way we can understand the relationship between economic and social progress better to help us build a better model of progress for our world. So that's the first sort of key design principle for the Social Progress Index, is to have no economic indicators. The second one is to build a model based entirely on outcomes. So we're not measuring how much money a country spends, what laws it passes. We're measuring the outcomes a country achieves. So we can understand what the real quality of life of people, not make judgments about what the right policies are. Third, we wanted to make something relevant to all countries. It's now nearly 40 years since the North-South Brandt Commission report. The language of North-South, the language of two worlds, doesn't mean anything anymore. Increasingly, countries at different levels of development are working on similar challenges. We need a measurement framework that works across all countries. And finally, critically, we must have actionability. Because just building measures for the sake of it doesn't mean anything. You've got to think about how that can translate into action. So that was the basis on which we built the Social Progress Index. All we had to do was define social progress. Now, we've been working on this since Aristotle. I do not claim to have succeeded where Aristotle failed. What we think we have done, however, is come up with a pretty defensible definition of social progress, which is this. What we're saying is that a good society is one that, first of all, gives everyone the basic needs of survival: food, water, shelter, safety. Secondly, a good society provides everyone with the foundations of well-being: basic education, access to information, health, and a good quality environment. And finally, a good society is one that gives everyone the opportunity to pursue their hopes and dreams, with rights, freedom of choice, freedom from discrimination, and access to the world's most advanced knowledge. These are the 12 components that make up the Social Progress Index. We didn't make this up ourselves. This obviously comes from an extensive literature, the work of people like Amartya Sen and Joseph Stiglitz and others. It's also been tested extensively with economists, political scientists, politicians, social experts, philosophers, people in pubs, and we've come back with the feedback that this works pretty well. Critically, what we've also found is that this framework represents a global consensus about the societies we're trying to build, which is, of course, the Sustainable Development Goals. So the Social Progress Index really captures the ideas that are within the Sustainable Development Goals, and we're actually increasingly finding it being used as a way of measuring progress against the SDGs. So we do have a consensus in the world about the kind of societies we're trying to build that's reflected in the Social Progress Index framework. All we had to do then was go out and measure it. And now what we do is we take data from other people. We don't do any primary data collection ourselves. We go to the UN, we go to people like Gallup, we go to experts to find all the good quality, credible data to add it all up and measure social progress. And here in excruciating detail is 50 indicators that we've taken that measure social progress. We know this isn't perfect. We know that there are things we could measure better. If you want to see a man cry, ask me later about areas where we could improve the measurement. There's lots of areas to improve, and one of the things we're trying to do is advocate for better data. But we think we've got enough data to produce some robust results. And here they are. I'm going to show you on this chart here, and what I've done here is put social progress on the vertical axis, higher is better, and then GDP per capita on the horizontal axis, further to the right is higher. GDP per capita there, it's just there for fun. It's not part of the Social Progress Index, just there for fun. So the country in the world with the highest social progress in 2017 is, in fact, Denmark. I know it's a bit boring, yeah? But if it wasn't Denmark, there'd be something wrong with our measure. or a similar country. The country with the lowest social progress, I'm sorry to say, is in fact Central African Republic. Now, you're clever people, so you will have spotted immediately that Denmark is a lot richer than Central African Republic. Absolutely right. But look at these two countries. Here's the United States. It's actually quite a lot richer than Denmark, but has a lower level of social progress. And then here's Senegal. It's not a lot richer than the Central African Republic, but it's got a lot more social progress. What's going on? Well, look, here's all the countries of the world, each of them represented by a dot. Here they come. Just out of interest, my country, the United Kingdom, we're not doing too badly. We're better than the United States, not as good as Denmark, but most importantly of all, we beat the French. Amongst the emerging economies, the BRICS economies, the highest performing country in the world is Brazil. That was completely lame. That was rubbish. Now let's do this again. So now I want some, not just clapping, I want cheering. Yeah, cheering, proper cheering. Okay. All right, ready? So I'll count you in. So the country of the BRICS economies, the highest social progress, in fact, is Brazil. There we go. See, beating out. Here we go. South Africa comes in next. Then we've got Russia, then China, and then India. There we go. So that's the BRICS economies. Just one more. The far right country with a lot of GDP and not a lot of social progress is, in fact, Kuwait. That's Kuwait. So let me just take out the countries of the world and just pop in here. This is the regression line showing the average relationship between GDP and social progress. And the first really important finding is that getting more GDP is not a stupid idea. Yeah? Having more resources to build roads, hire nurses, provide social welfare programs, with the right policies, GDP can be really helpful for advancing social progress, especially for the poorer countries. But what we also see is that GDP is not destiny. It's at every level of GDP per capita, there's opportunities for more social progress and risks of less. And that if you're basing the development of your society just on GDP, you have an incomplete plan. And that if actually we can harness our resources better, we could actually have a huge step change in the improvement of social progress and the real quality of life of people around the world. Now, just out of interest, what we see here about Brazil is, of course, Brazil is there above the line, which means that Brazil is an above-average performer on using its GDP for social progress. Now, that's good news. Now, I have learned in talking about this around the world is the thing that people want to hear least of all is good news. Yeah? People often like, yeah, tell us the bad news. Don't give me good news. Don't say anything good about my country. But there is a positive here about Brazil. Brazil is doing a pretty good job at using its resources to create social progress, better than other countries. That's an important finding. And what we can do is drill down further and see what's really going on in Brazil. So what we can do is actually then pull the results out and compare Brazil's performance to other countries of similar GDP per capita. And that's what we do on this slightly complicated social progress scorecard. Don't worry, I'll talk you through it. Keep calm. First thing to note is that in the world of social progress, traffic lights are red, yellow, and blue. Apparently it's because it's better for people who are colorblind. So red is bad, yeah, so light's still traditionally bad, blue is good. And so what that tells us is Brazil is 43rd in the world on social progress and 56th in the world on GDP per capita. Brazil's performance on social progress is statistically significantly better than countries of similar GDP per capita. That's why in the top here we see a blue dot. So Brazil's an overperformer. What's driving it? Well, we can break it down. Let's look at the three columns. First of all, basic human needs. Brazil's performance here is generally sort of average within the expected range, with one clear exception, which is, of course, personal safety. So this is an area where Brazil is really underperforming compared to its peer countries. That is not news. What struck me about this was that if we look at the causes of it, and the slide's not quite clear, there's issues like homicide and violent crime, But also one of the areas where Brazil's doing a lot worse than other countries of similar GDP is on road traffic deaths. And one of the things we certainly know is that road traffic deaths is a very solvable problem. It's actually the 10th biggest cause of death in the world, road traffic accidents. So it's actually so it's not just the homicide issue, there are other issues there in safety, and road traffic safety is a very solvable problem. Now, secondly, foundations of well-being. Again, a pretty average performance against most of these. Now, I think a lot of you, and I've heard the conversation today, might be saying, well, why aren't we doing worse on education? And I think an issue we have here with education is it's very hard to get globally comparable data on quality of education. So here we've got enrollment rates, etc., where Brazil's doing okay, but there may be issues around quality education that we can't pick up because we don't have the data. And then we move over, and here we see where Brazil's strength is. It's in two areas: personal freedom and choice, and tolerance and inclusion. Now, tolerance and inclusion, indeed, is actually a really hard problem. A lot of countries, a lot of rich countries are struggling with this issue, and Brazil does very, very well in this area, which is a very striking result. So Brazil is overperforming in general on social progress because it actually does very well on some of these softer things around personal freedom and choice and tolerance and inclusion. That's what's driving Brazil's performance. So this is the 2017 scorecard. I do have to say that the 2018 Social Progress Index is coming out next week. And I can't give you a sneak preview. I've been ordered not to. But let me just give you a teaser that I think we're going to see some. We'll have 5 years of time series, and looking at trends over time, there's a very interesting in the not so good story about Brazil, and there's some very interesting challenges there for the country. So this is going to be updated next week, and we'll see how some of the what changes have occurred over the last 5 years. Now, I said that in building this, our fourth key design principle was around actionability. How do we take data like this and actually change people's lives? Well, what we've been doing since we launched the first Social Progress Index in 2014 has been building a global network of partners using this data. And that network is now covering about 45 countries. I think it might now be 47. I think we've got 47 countries now where this data is being used to actually drive change and work in different ways. And a lot of that innovation has come as a result of work that was done in Brazil. And this is why this is a bit of a homecoming for Social Progress Index being here in Brazil. It was back in 2014 when we were launching the first Social Progress Index that people who many of you will know, the people at Amazon, Beto Verissimo in particular, came to us and said, we really want to put the lives of the people of the Amazon on the map. Can we build a Social Progress Index for the people of the Amazon? And we said, we don't know, but let's try. And so that together with Amazon, we built this Social Progress Index for the Amazon region of Brazil, 772 municipalities, giving granular data on the performance of all those different communities. And that innovation of building subnational social progress indices is now being used by the government of India, the European Commission, Australia, etc. It's spreading around the world, thanks to the innovation that started here. And as you see, the data from 2014 is just being updated for 2018. And we see quite an interesting finding here that actually social progress has gone backwards in this region over the last 4 years. And my colleague Marcelo Mossana is here, right at the back, waving his hand. He's working on this. He knows all about this. If you want to know more, ask him. Very quickly, just say that after we built this, our friends at Coca-Cola, Natura, and Ipsos took this to another level, measuring social progress in the particular region of the Amazon region, in Caruaru. And then we've also been developing a social progress index for Rio de Janeiro. So it's really been a tool where there's been a lot of innovation in bringing this home to communities. And this is when we put data into the hands of people, of civil society, of business and government, a common language, then you actually can create a new conversation about progress. You're having a shared language about what progress means and what we can do about it. And I lied when I said I wouldn't talk about technology, because I think one thing is really a case with technology is how we can improve these tools. If we can create more real-time data that's telling a story about communities at a really granular level, then we can improve that language, have a better discussion, we can communicate better all those issues our societies face and accelerate progress and build better lives for people. And that's what we're here for. Thank you very much.
Vamos aí agora ter a chance de fazer perguntas para o Michael. Uma primeira pergunta, Michael, que o teu gráfico mostra, essa correlação que existe. De um lado, países aparentemente mais democráticos e países menos democráticos. E é interessante que os dois azuis do Brasil que aparecem têm relação com a liberdade do indivíduo decidir. Então, eu queria que você comentasse um pouco essa relação entre o desenvolvimento e a democracia, se é possível, com os teus dados, ter alguma inferência.
I mean, for us, it was really important to include these issues around rights and inclusion in the index, because they are part of our global agreement on what makes a good society. Often they get ignored for political reasons, because some countries in the world that don't like human rights get them pushed out of agendas. But that's why we've put that data in. And that's what gives us perhaps a slightly different perspective. That some of the sort of more authoritarian countries are perhaps better at delivering sort of bread to their citizens and roads, are actually doing more weakly on those issues around rights that are linked to being a more democratic society. So I think we've really helped to rebalance the conversation about the achievements of countries that are able to give bread and freedom to people. And I think there's a warning here is that when we look at the Arab Spring experience, what we see across the Arab Spring countries is their country profiles are strong on basic human needs, weak on opportunity. And if you don't provide opportunity and freedom to your citizens, you're going to have a trouble further down the line. And I think that's, and we also know from a further analysis that those opportunity indicators are very important for life satisfaction. So actually bringing those issues into the equation, into the calculus about what makes a good society and what we should be targeting is really, really important. And I think highlights some of the achievements of countries like Brazil.
Okay, thank you. Uma pergunta?
Eu vou fazer uma pergunta bem simples. Eu olhei o slide em que apareciam os dados do Brasil, fiquei muito feliz com o nosso desempenho, mas não entendi por que nós tínhamos 3 bolinhas azuis, uma bolinha vermelha e um monte de bola amarela, e nós somos azuis. Será que você pode me explicar? Tem peso? E qual é o peso de cada uma das bolinhas?
There's always someone who asks the statistical question. So the way we define a red or a blue is we get the median score for the peer group of countries, so the 15 countries that are closest to Brazil. So we'll calculate through the indicators, add them all up, and then for the total SPI, there'll be a median score for that group of which Brazil's a part. And then we'll say, if there's a deviation of more than one average absolute deviation, then it's a strength or a weakness. So that's the way Brazil's got Brazil's got a cocktail. There's some weakness and there's some strength and some average. When we add up that cocktail, we actually get to a conclusion that overall, Brazil is statistically a strength. And for us, it was very important that you were able to add up in this way. Our clear feeling is, from looking at other examples, is that just a dashboard doesn't work. You have to be able to sum it up to a single number if it's going to be part of the political debate. And if we listen to what we talk about, has GDP gone up? Has inflation gone up? Has the stock market gone up? Our political debate is all about single numbers that go up and down. And that's why it's important for us to sum up together to be able to say, has social progress in Brazil gone up or down in the next 5 years? And you'll find out the answer to that on 20th of September.
Lá no fundo.
Fiquei com uma dúvida, por que países que são relevantes, quando a gente faz essas comparações internacionais...
Lá no fundo está falando. Espera um pouquinho.
Desculpa, achei que você...
Oi, a pergunta que eu tenho, olhando o index, se você tivesse que dar um conselho para nós brasileiros, quais são os assuntos que a gente deveria abordar ou atacar para subir no social progress? Tem alguma frente que teria mais impacto ou alguma recomendação?
I would never be so presumptuous. I mean, I think we're very clear is that scorecard is there as the start of a conversation or the end of a conversation. It's there just to provide some comparable data. What I would say when looking at a scorecard like that is what it's showing is where there is a red, it means that most of the other countries with the same resources of you have done significantly better, which tells us that elsewhere in the world that problem has been solved. So it may be, actually, either you've got a really particular local problem that makes this hard, or that actually this is a really solvable problem that could be fixed. Whereas if it's another issue where everyone is struggling, it maybe there isn't such an easy solution. So I think that's what we could say. And then what we're actually doing now is, next April, we're going to be holding a big conference in Iceland called What Works, which is co-hosted with the World Bank, which is looking at where are those examples of positive deviance, countries that are doing surprisingly well. What lessons can they share to help other countries to improve?
Eu fiquei curioso com a ausência de informações para 3 países, né? Canadá, Austrália e Nova Zelândia. Alguma razão por que esses países não estão no mapa lá? Você não tem dados sobre esses países?
Yeah, we got data on, this year we'll have data on 146 countries. So when I said the map was just showing where we have a network and a partnership, and I actually have to really apologize to Australia, because we have a new partnership in Australia that I hadn't yet updated my map. So we've got data on those. You know, Canada, New Zealand, Australia are all doing pretty well on social progress in general. New Zealand is doing really well relative to its GDP. That's a very strong performance. And in general, just to complete the story, the United States is doing really, really badly. I mean, what we have seen since we started measuring this is the United States has got a red circle. Yeah? It's consistently underperforming on social progress relative to its GDP per capita against its peers. And it's around safety, education, health, even rights issues. And it's just a really striking, our data has been very striking about how badly the United States is doing. And this started well before Mr. Trump. I suspect it started decades ago, but there's a real problem for the US in that way. I should say all the data is on our website, full transparency on the methodology. You can download all the data and use it. And we love feedback. The index gets stronger every year due to the feedback of people. So please do look at it, get in touch. Love to hear what you think.
How about Argentina?
Argentina. You're kind of doing a memory test on me. This is part of a problem with this job. I was in Luxembourg, and people saying, like, what about this issue? And what about water in Luxembourg? And it's like, how do I know about water in Luxembourg? So I think Argentina is not overperforming relative to its GDP. And I think it's a bit higher than Brazil. So in absolute terms, it's higher than Brazil. But relative to its GDP, it's not doing so well.
Não, o que me chamou a atenção, ele mencionou que eles não usam os inputs, né, e que estão usando outcomes, né, foi a palavra. E aí, lendo a lista, me parecia que tinha alguns que estão mais para output do que para outcomes. Você faz essa diferenciação de outputs e outcomes ou não?
Well, you asked the question, usually probably the definition. We try as far as possible get us to outcomes. Yeah, I mean, it is not perfect. We have to get the data that we can to measure those as far as we can get to outcomes, yes. And then outputs, outcomes, we can have a debate about exactly which is which. But we try and get to that as far as possible.
Mais alguém? Uma coisa, por favor.
Obrigada. Achei muito corajoso falar sobre filantropia e capitalismo, né? Capitalismo é uma palavra difícil, eu acho, da gente analisar. E vi na sua bio que você tem um livro sobre Capitalism, que é interessante também como conceito. E aí fico pensando, na sua leitura da relação entre filantropia e capitalismo, qual o papel do Estado para avançar nesses red dots, nos conceitos em que a gente está muito para trás? Se você vê que é mais no papel do investimento social privado ou do Estado, ou complementar, como seria a relação entre esses atores? Obrigada.
Yeah, I mean, in a sense, when wrote the book Capitalism, one of the things we were arguing was that there's not a contradiction there, that actually capitalism needs thriving societies to survive. So long-sighted capitalism makes sure that it returns value to society and helps society to thrive and makes sure our environment is protected, which in a sense is the same idea we have behind the Social Progress Index. And I think this is, was one of Professor Porter's quotes there, is that long-term economic growth is built on strong social foundations. So whether we're governments or businesses, we've got to be thinking about how we're making sure that we're looking after our society, looking after our environment, if we're going to thrive in the long term. Now, one thing we want to do with the Social Progress Index is see if we can find an empirical backing for that proposition. Because then if we can demonstrate that actually failing social indicators are an economic risk, then you're actually changing the equation for spending on social issues. Social issues stop being a cost, they become an investment. And my dream is, imagine a day when the bond markets are downgrading a country's bonds because they're showing a reduction in human rights or a reduction in education quality. That's what you want. And I think that's where the place we want to get to. And I'm taking a bigger frame. What's the whole story of that crisis of 2008? Was the incentives and mindsets that we had towards the short term. And we've got to break away in the way we run our economies, the way we run our businesses, away from short-term value to long-term value. And if we think in terms of long-term value, we'll invest in different things. And we'll not be thinking about conflict between business and society. We'll see that the two need to be working together in a symbiotic way so that both can succeed. And that's the vision we've got to work towards.
Uma das questões que o Brasil está enfrentando hoje, nós tivemos uma reunião envolvendo os responsáveis pelos programas dos candidatos a presidente no setor saúde. E as pessoas que vieram falar são realmente os líderes das equipes. E a gente ficou surpreso porque nós estamos tendo indicadores de 2016 para cá, que são indicadores alarmantes sob o ponto de vista de um país que estava tendo uma queda progressiva e importante da mortalidade infantil, particularmente da mortalidade neonatal, que são os primeiros 28 dias de vida, e nós estamos vendo um recrudescimento da mortalidade infantil. Estamos vendo um recrudescimento da diminuição de crianças que são vacinadas adequadamente e no tempo certo. Estamos vendo uma série de questões envolvendo os serviços de saúde deixando de cumprir o papel que eles deveriam cumprir, tanto no papel de promoção, como no papel de atendimento médico-hospitalar. E isso ocorre nesses últimos 2 anos. Seguramente, esses indicadores estão contra esses direitos que o indivíduo deveria ter e são fornecidos pelo Estado. Mas mais surpreendente é que a maioria dos candidatos foram candidatos que diziam que a gente estava engessado no nosso orçamento e que precisaria ter mais dinheiro para o setor saúde. Um candidato só, e por razões de não tomar nenhum interesse político partidário nessa conversa, somente um disse que o seguinte, que nós temos dinheiro suficiente. O problema é que 15%, esse foi o dado que ele deu, 15% dos recursos que hoje estão no setor saúde são absolutamente desperdiçados. E desperdiçado desde o exemplo de você ter corrupção, que não é nenhuma novidade no nosso país, mas desperdiçado por uma absoluta incapacidade de gestão dos gestores de saúde. Então, se a gente olhar um pouco como é que no Brasil se reflete algumas questões dessa, eu gostaria que aumentasse o azul e não ficasse numa situação que em 2019 você me vem aqui com os dados com mais vermelho. Essa é uma situação real que a gente está vivendo. Então, eu estou pegando um aspecto que saúde, mas isso é muito mais amplo que saúde, porque pega toda essa gama de indicadores que ele colocou e eu peguei só uma fração dessa reunião que ocorreu agora, né? Michael, alguma última palavra que você gostaria de dizer ao grupo antes de nós encerrarmos a sessão? Last word from you.
I actually want to make a recommendation for a fantastic book that everyone must read, which is called Factfulness by Hans Rosling. He was a Swedish professor of medicine. He sadly died last year. But he's been famous on these fantastic TED Talks over many years, in which he talks about the world as we see it. And one of the things he does is he's tested people all around the world about statistics about global health and the state of the world. And we're always wrong. And he says the better educated you are, the more likely you are to be wrong.
Okay.
Because we are fixated on the world as it was when we were children, he basically says. And therefore we misunderstand the world. And so many of our debates are coming through a misinterpretation of what the world is really like. And I think he describes factfulness as the stress-reducing habit of basing your opinions only on things for which there are facts. And I like this idea, and I just encourage all of us, whenever we have decisions to make about strategies for your organizations, for your country, always put on your spectacles to look at the real data. Because our impressions, our feelings so often deceive us. And only when we put on our spectacles and look at the hard data will we really understand what's really going on and what we really need to do. We've got to do that. Otherwise, we are so prone to mistakes.
Excelente. Eu queria que vocês pusessem atenção, porque o Michael fez uma apresentação no TED Global, um pouco antiga, de 2014, portanto são 4 anos, mas eu tenho certeza, se vocês verem esse TED, que é What the Social Progress Index Can Reveal About Your Country, é uma apresentação extremamente didática e interessante, que já teve 1.200.000 vezes foi vista, né? E é 15 minutos, eu proporia para vocês, conhecendo pessoalmente as ideias do Michael, vocês voltarem um pouco essas origens quando começou essa discussão, porque vocês vão ter um significado muito interessante de como o nosso setor é um setor que progressivamente precisa avançar em ter elementos novos com os quais a gente toma a decisão. O processo decisório da filantropia está exigindo, e aí vem a tecnologia como um elemento importante, que nós estejamos cada vez mais sintonizados com as informações mais agudas com as quais a gente deveria pôr aí a nossa preocupação sobre as causas que dificultam o processo de desenvolvimento social, que é o que a gente está buscando. Muito obrigado, hein?